caterhamracer.com Academy Championship is sponsored by just Add Lightness, high-performance LED lights for the Caterham 7. Well, good evening everybody once again. Welcome to more esports action Caterham style with the caterhamracer.com Championships. This time it is the turn of the Academy. They might be the slowest cars in the Caterham roster, but that doesn't mean that they produce any less action. In some cases, we well know from these championships, they produce even more sometimes than the 420Rs. The 420R cars have already had their turn racing on this circuit, but now most of the same drivers are back to see what they can do with a little less powerful machinery and see if they can possibly have the same kind of success. Pre-qualifying has been very close in terms of times. 4 drivers separated by just over a tenth and a half in pre-qualification, so it should be incredibly close at the front, particularly at the venue that we're at. Once again, we're back at the, once again, fastest circuit in the UK, Thruxton circuit in Hampshire. And they'll be racing around this superb 2.356 mile circuit, or 3.791 for those in kilometres. And it should be a cracking race nonetheless. The 420R cars definitely put on a great show, but we wonder if the Academy can do even better. Scott Woodwiss and Chris Hutchinson once again on the mic once more. And Chris, of course, we're building up to Real Life Race Week once again, the second weekend where we've got all 5 Caterham Championships back out this weekend in real life at this very circuit. We've got, of course, Academy, Road Sport, 270Rs, 310Rs, and the new national level and renamed 7 UK Championship, which was known as the 420Rs in the past. The cars are the same, but the naming and the branding a little bit different. And based on what we saw in the 420Rs and almost kind of what we're seeing in qualifying here right now, it should hopefully be another intense night of racing with the Academy cars, as I mentioned, don't have the most power. In fact, they have the least amount of power, the least amount of grip. But it doesn't mean that the race is any less intense. In fact, in many cases, it usually is even more so than their much more powerful counterparts.
Yeah, I love the Academy car. It's a great balance of, you know, power to handling capability. You know, just because you've got slightly less power or slightly less speed or grip doesn't mean it's any less fun. And actually, we've quite regularly seen the racing, you know, in the hands of some of these drivers is actually even better. Again, the slight lowering of speed means that people can go side by side even more, and we've seen how much they like going side by side in the 420s. So yeah, we can see David Rowe and Christian here working together to try and set some impressive times, but so far that's not quite held up. They're in 3rd and 4th in the early stages, but we're still very early on in the qualifying session right now.
Anyone remembers, of course, the 420R races, those two weren't quite working together at times in those races, so I wonder if possibly they've had a bit of a chat over the course of the past 7 days and thought, right, this time we'll see if we can work together and get towards the front. Whilst we look at Steve McMaster, it might be an appropriate time to look at how the point standings come into this weekend's race, or this evening's racing. Jaroslav Cherny, our Czech driver, leads the way with 137 points, 3 wins out of 4 so far. He almost has a complete maximum score. He got a 3rd place in the first race at Alton Park, and then 3 straight wins from Alton, and then the double at Cadwell Park last time out. Christian Zaruto, who's been incredibly consistent with 2 second places last time, is now 2nd in the points, 10 back with 127. David Rowe is 3rd with 122. Then there's a bit of a gap, and it's quite congested in the battle for the best of the rest in the top 10. Paul Fernandez has made great progress up in 4th position. Richard Gallagher is also running well. He's now level with Blair McConaughey, just a point behind Fernandez each of them. Then 105 points, 3 points back from 6th and 7th is now Guy Crawford and Warren Rossetti, with James Murphy, who won the first race of the season, back in 10th. Then you have to go all the way down to 18th place to find Steve McMaster, who was quick in the 420Rs before, but he couldn't carry that pace into Cadwell because he missed it due to being on holiday. But his vacation is now over, and he's back to the business of racing against his esports rivals to try and get himself up through the table. One thing we should mention, of course, Chris, is that we are going to have drop scores, so these won't be the full tally that television sees. Even though the drivers will score a certain amount of points overall, they won't all count towards their final tallies come the end of the season.
Yes, we are only halfway through the season. Towards the end of the season, we'll start showing those drop scores, and that closes everything up. And just as we were speaking there, McMaster happily put himself up to 4th place, so just to prove that he hasn't lost any of his speed in his little holidays in the Academy car. So good job there. Coming into the meat now of the qualifying session, so everyone's going to be looking to start. You know, if they haven't got that lap in yet, they're going to start thinking, "Oh, I've got to put something together now."
Yep, Steve McMaster suitably recharged after his holiday, and he's back behind the virtual wheel of his Caterham, which, for those who haven't seen that paint scheme before, is inspired by the Ken Miles for GT40 that came incredibly close to winning Le Mans in 66, and those who have watched the Le Mans 66 Ford versus Ferrari film will certainly be quite familiar with that as well. There's James Murphy, one of our race winners so far this season, in fact one of our only 2 race winners. He was the very first race winner of the season at Alton Park, currently 3rd fastest, and he was actually going into this evening's race 2nd fastest in pre-qualifying for Grid A. The fastest man on the server before this tonight was Christian Zaruto with a 1:31.845. The current provisional pole time actually only fractions off that, 1:31.887 set by David Rowe. James Murphy goes across the line and is a bit off in the last chicane there, so he hasn't quite matched that time so far. Looking down the starters, as we said, the top 4 times, the only drivers getting into the 1:31s, and we were talking before the broadcast, Chris, as someone who of course has raced Caterhams, and not just virtually, but for many years in real life as well, of course being 2018 310R champion, is that in the esports side of this server here, it's quite quick enough to be in the 1:32s, but we particularly look at a time which, for every circuit, usually is a time that if a driver can achieve it, it's a particularly special lap. And so to have 4 drivers to go sub 1:32 and to be that close means that if they're going to be all together at the front of the field, which it looks like they potentially could be with an errant Steve McMaster in the mix as well, considering that he was 5th fastest and about 3/10 off that time. He still kind of is, but kind of getting up there in the mix. It should be a very, in theory and on paper, a very close contest for the lead. But of course, we know in Caterham racing, both real and esports, it never quite works out as simple as that, does it?
No, and running close, is something we're expecting to see. I just wanted to point out that we just had a very now traditional server wobble as we saw some cars jinking around, and obviously if that happens when they are running close, then we could see all sorts of things. I know that the internet today has had some problems with BT, so we're really hopeful that those are all ironed out. Everything's recovering back to normal. But yes, I'm fully expecting them to run close, and hopefully everything will allow them to do that. And yeah, like I say, I love seeing these guys go pack racing. And if anyone fancies it, they are more than welcome to come and join on some of our practice servers and see how they line up against the kind of times that we put in there. So if you're sat there watching and you fancy getting involved, there are opportunities to do that. And it's not until you try and match these times that you realise quite how quick they are.
Yeah, and if you do decide to join and give it a go, you have to basically pass what's called a virtual ARDS test in many cases, or a virtual race licence, just to kind of pass the test that you are quick enough and, if you forgive me for saying so, competent enough behind the virtual wheel to be able to race with these guys. And once you've got it, you can then step up to try and pre-qualify. If you're quick enough, you can get yourself into one of the coveted top 18 spots that gets you into Grid A, which sees you on the broadcast here. Whereas for Grid B, there is also a separate grid for that, and so those who don't make it outside of the top 18 also race as well for their own separate little sort of bit of bragging rights and pride in many cases. So there'll be 2 races going at the same time, and there should be some hopefully highlights, I would imagine, for the Academy cars at some point within the next few weeks whilst we wait for the next rounds coming up at Brands Hatch. But that's then. This is now. 4.25 minutes still to go in this qualifying session. David Rowe still has the pole position time of a 1:31.887. It's getting pretty close just behind him, because Jaroslav Cherny is now only half a tenth back with the second quickest, and James Murphy, whilst I saw you talking there, Chris, did move up to third, only a couple of tenths back, a couple of hundredths, behind Jaroslav Cherny in third quickest. Steve McMaster is now fourth, but still 3 tenths off or so the best time, so he's getting a little bit quicker, but he's only just edging towards the top 3. Christian Zaruto, who was fastest, only 5th quickest so far, fastest in pre-qualifying. And then it's Emil Jaselic, Will Rossetti, Tim Van Hee, Andrew Parker, and then Richard Gallagher, who's pretty high up in the points towards the top 5. And looking down the rest of the order, one driver that's a little bit further down than I would have expected, 2 in fact actually, is Blair McConaughey, who's down in 14th, and he's only just over a second off the pole time. But also as well, Paul Fernandez, if he comes into this evening's racing, Chris, 4th in points, having scored some fairly consistent results, and started the season strong, but maybe through a little bit of bad fortune, just not being on the pace of others exactly. His results have taken a little bit of a steady nosedive since the first race of the season. So is he just possibly a bit of a mid-season slip, or is he possibly just finding that he's not as quick as just some other guys playing around this circuit, or do you think there might be other factors that could be determining his pace a bit?
I think he would admit himself that there's a couple of tenths off on the actual time, and around a circuit like this, a couple of tenths, you can see what difference it makes. Steve Arnell in 11th place is on 8 tenths down, and 7th place is 6 tenths. So it's, those 2 tenths make a big difference on lap time. Also, we've seen Paul qualify, or generally race better than he qualifies. We see Christian cutting that last little bit and getting out of shape looking like it was going to be an alright lap time, but now he hasn't improved. But yeah, so we would expect to see him higher. We've also seen McConaughey sort of falling down the order a little bit in the academy cars. He seems to perform better in the 420, but he doesn't always get to do as much practice as some of the other guys, and that might cause him to take a little bit of time to actually catch up.
We're also talking about the fact that these guys like Paul Fernandez, Richard Gallagher, Blaine McConaughey, these kind of guys in the mix. These are all guys where if you look at that points table back as we had before, when we were looking at it earlier on, from 4th down to 11th place, it's a 9-point gap. So you've got some 8 drivers separated by 9 points, and it just, because they've had such a different jumble up of results between the 4 races that we've had between Alton Park and then Cadwell Park respectively, it means that it's incredibly congested in there, and it just means that particularly tonight and going forward for the next few rounds, because of those been so many mixed results for several drivers, it really does mean that literally one small slip, particularly if you're in that pack amongst the drivers to try and pick up points, it can really be the difference between finishing up in P4 in the standings and right down to the bottom of that pack in 11th. It's quite a congested second half of the top 10 that pit drivers are going to try and negotiate themselves pretty quickly, and this could be an indicator where the higher you are able to show your pace in qualifying could be an advantage by the time you get to the race, because it might show if you've got an advantage over the others that you're battling with in the points compared to anyone else that's in the mix.
We've got the second covering the top 14, 15 here, and even 16, 17th not far behind. Tom looks like he's sort of sat there in a little bit of no man's land, perhaps waiting to get his good lap in. But Cherney here is plopped in a lap of just off pole position, which David Rowe currently holds, but he's 53 thousandths of a second and 56 thousandths for Murphy, just tiny margins. So when we're saying people are falling down the field, it often means that maybe it's just not their favourite track, but equally people race better than they qualify sometimes. So qualifying is not the end of this. The racing is far more important. Not making a mistake, not having a collision and spinning off is far more important.
A circuit like Thruxton, where overtaking and the slipstream and how strong it is at times, particularly if you're in a pack of cars, the advantage that you can get and the strength of a tow you can get if you're in a group of 4 or 5 cars to pick up a tow from just not just one car but 2 or potentially 3 if you're able to work your way through it. You're absolutely right when it says that on a circuit like this, qualifying might matter to a certain extent, but because of the nature of the circuit, being able to race your way through might be in some ways easier because of how quick it is and the fast nature of how it flows, but also the speed you've got and the opportunities you've got to be able to get a tow and sit in the slipstream with the cars around you is going to be pretty key to do that. Qualifying has to see a checker flag go out, so we'll see if anyone can improve. You mentioned that James Murphy is now only 3 thousandths off of Jaroslav Cherney, so he just very fractionally improved his time by a couple of hundredths, so he's in the mix right there, but it's only 3 thousandths that separates him from starting on the second row to the front row of the grid. But it does look as though that David Rowe is going to be earning himself pole position, and we've got James Murphy here trying to wiggle his way out of the club chicane onto the pit straight, and we'll see if there's any chance that he can possibly go a little bit quicker. Oh, he has gone quicker. Oh no, sorry, he hasn't. My apologies. I thought for a second it flashed up saying 1 for some reason, and I was looking at the right-hand side. So Murphy stays third, as I decide not to get too excited this time and come back down again. So Rowe is now on provisional pole once more. Just see if anyone else is possibly going to try and improve their times with a couple of last-minute laps. Matt Shepherd pulling into pit lane after he's qualified in 7th, but the last couple of cars will come either across the line or straight into pit lane. Recognise that they're not able to improve at all. So as the qualifying session comes to a close and everyone starts to get ready, as Tim Vanhey going for a slide in the pit lane there, bit of a handbrake turn into his pit box, but it is David Rowe who picks up pole position, 1 minute 31.887, and that was just a comparison for his pre-qualification time. Well, the pre-qualification best time was a 1:31.845, so he's only 400ths off that, so very close towards the top. But David Rowe certainly improving. He's a 10th better than his pre-qualifying time, so he's certainly shown some improvement. Might have got a bit of a help from a tow from somebody whilst he was on that fast lap as well. Then it's Jaroslav Cherney, second quickest from James Murphy, only 3 thousandths of a second behind him in third. And then it's fourth quickest for Steve McMaster. He's back with a bang after his holiday, only a 10th off now. And then we've got Christian Zaruto, fastest man in pre-qualifying, only 5th best in the actual session itself. Emil Jaselic with one of his personal best results in 6th in qualifying, 7th for Matt Shepherd, 8th for Tim Vanhey, and then it's Will Rossetti and Steve Arnell rounding off the top 10. 11th quickest for Andrew Parker in his grey and purple machine. From Richard Gallagher in 12th, he's got some work to do from 12th after he comes into this weekend, of course. 5th in points, just one behind Paul Fernhoff. Then Mark Rodman, Blair McConaughey's got work to do also from 14th on the grid. Andy Steele, Paul Fernhoff himself down in 16th and 1.1 seconds off, so lots of work to do from towards the back. And then Paula Hawker and Tom McEwing, who starts towards the rear of the field in 18th position. So, Chris, lots of drivers who are in that sort of mid-pack outer position a little bit, but of course a circuit that does benefit slipstreaming, benefits overtaking, benefits pack racing as a whole. It's an easy question to ask, but a difficult one to answer. How do you anticipate this potential race running out? You've got a front few cars that are incredibly close pace-wise, a mid-pack in terms of the championship where the drivers are spread out pretty evenly across the middle and rear of the field. This is all going to be about who can literally work together with drivers the best and work their way up through the field, whether it's try and pull away at the front, work their way through the mid-pack, or just get themselves out from the rear of the field, try and get some kind of a strong result to get them a good starting spot for race 2.
Yes, it's got to be all about holding on for race 2 at the moment. Again, we've seen in recent races the person out front has a chance to break the toe as the people behind fight. And again, I don't see that being any different now. So it is about getting that good start, not getting the false start that we've seen where you have to go through the pits. There's also cuts to be careful of around this track. We saw that a few times in the other race and we can be a bit more aware of it now. But that last chicane, if you get a cut round it, you have to slow down before the line. And that can cause all sorts of problems, as we saw for David Rowe. And just to mention again, just to keep it in everyone's mind, the server again had a little wobble then as we were back in the pits, so we should be watching out for that because that could cause all sorts of little shenanigans and disruption. So hopefully that won't happen and disrupt the race, but just hold on to your hats if it does.
Yeah, batten down the hatches, I think. I just see flying Caterhams all over the place on the screen and not on purpose. But one quick mention as well also is that David Rowe, I'm going to touch wood now and hopefully not try and curse him because he had, let's say, an eventful weekend at Thruxton in the 420 Isles. We'll get to that possibly through the race as we are about to get things underway. So let's see if David Rowe can convert it this time into victory, or if anyone else around him can possibly steal it from him. Red lights are up for the first race of the evening for the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship. The lights are out and off we go. It's a pretty clean start for the first race. Somebody with a big start looks like Tim Vanhey from 5th or 6th row of the grid, shooting through the middle, up through Allard for the first time, and it is David Rowe who holds the lead with, looks to me as if that is Cherney in second place, and already Cherney's making Rowe go defensive. Murphy's trying to go with him on the run towards the complex. This is going to be tricky, and Murphy's not hanging around for second place. It's side by side for 4th and 5th between Steve McMaster. Cherney runs out wide and gets very loose. He tries to come back onto the circuit, and he's clipped the rear of Steve McMaster, and round goes. Oh, goodness me. It's absolute carambolage up at the complex. Several cars going everywhere, and it's now shaking up the midfield pretty significantly. David Rowe still leads the way. James Murphy's up to second place, and Zaruto's now third. But for 4th place downwards, Chris, I'm afraid, at the moment, is anyone's guess. Yep,
we saw a bit of disruption there, and it's been a while since we've seen a sort of first couple of corners issue like that, and everyone will sort themselves out. We've said before, we run with no damage for the very reason that we want to keep everyone in the race, and so that all those people will pick up, and it'll depend on how the rest of this race goes as to who catches up when. But we'll keep an eye on those because there may be some good racing at the back, but at the moment we've got some really good racing showing up front here with the top 3 now clear and got a gap. So again, will they work together? I doubt it. Here's Murphy going to the outside of David Rowe into the club chicane. It can work up here on the brakes with Zaruto coming up the inside. So they really are. Oh, there's contact there between David Rowe and Christian Zaruto, and David's ended up in the barrier. Christian's going to end up going straight on. It's not been a good tidy first few laps, has it? And then we've got more collection with them as they try and rejoin.
That was the worst place he could have caught his teammate right there in the mix. I was about to say, thinking about it in my head, if Derek Rowe was watching, he'd have a smile on his face with all 3 cars. That smile might have just been evaporated from his face watching that happen. So let's just take stock of all this then. So James Murphy now leads the way after a very hectic first lap. It's Will Rossetti in second place, and Blair McConaughey, who started, 7th row of the grid, he's now up to 3rd place out of all of this, which is pretty astonishing. 4th place now back into it is David Rowe. He's just passed or repassed Matt Shepherd after losing the place at the chicane. Richard Gallagher's in 6th position. 7th place for Mark Rodman. He's had a cracking getaway to pick through his way through the field. Steve McMaster is now 8th as he was the one that got tagged by Jaroslav Cherney. Zaruto's now down to 9th after his mistake at the club chicane. It's 10th for Andy Steele. It's Cherney who was on the front row of the grid and was, unfortunately, I hate to say it, the instigator in that instant, because he did tag McMaster, which sent people spinning around in avoidance in the background watching that. He's now up to 10th past Andy Steele, then just selling Parker, Van Heat, Arnell and Paul Fernandez with Paul Hawker and Andy McEwing. So Murphy now has got quite a comfortable lead of over 6.5 seconds. But now, this, as we see everyone trying to fight their way back through the field, it's almost like the perfect storm where you've got some very fast guys recovering, and there's more contact as someone goes and make contact into Church. I think that was Emma just said it, going up inside of Andy Steele and making contact. Andy Parker's now been able to move his way through, and he's now got both Tim Van Heen and Steve Arnell going 2 by 2 hurrah up towards the club chicane. So already comes towards the end of the second lap, Chris. There's enough action here to possibly cover an entire race, let alone a couple of laps.
I think every week I mention how difficult it is and how easy they make running this close together, but I think they've tonight have just realised that they still need to really work at it hard. It doesn't come for free. You've got to really work at that. But we are seeing the kind of like Cherney coming back through the field, but you can see the kind of pack racing we've still got deep into the field as everyone sorts themselves out.
Look at how many points you score. You get 35 points for a win, 33 for second, and 32 for third position. So if James Murphy was to say here was, oops, one car's off the road, and oh dear, there's more cars going off in the back. I think that was Tim Van Heet and Steve Arnell and possibly Paul Fernandez involved in that as well. One car went off and had his own incident running out onto the runoff area at Campbell, Carlton, Seagrave, or in entry into Campbell. And 2 more cars in sympathy kind of got together in front of him just as that was happening. So Matt Shepherd then on the tail of Blair McConaughey, who is still in third position, and these two, of course, are different experience levels. Matt Shepherd is in, correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, I think he's in 310Rs this year, I think. Matt Shepherd. Whereas Blair McConaughey is in the 270Rs. He's about a year behind, I think, if I'm right. He's a road sports, forgive me, because he was in the academy last year. So a fairly similar spec that he's got here, and these two drivers, of course, with different experience levels in real life, going wheel to wheel. And David Rowe's not hanging around. He's back up to 5th past Richard Gallagher, who's still doing pretty well up in 6th, considering he started down the order. But now towards the club chicane, under brakes, and Blair McConaughey thinks, no, not quite, Matt, I'm not quite ready to let you through just yet. And he squeezes back through. James Murphy with the clear track sets another new fastest lap of the race at the end of lap 3. That's the second proper flying lap, because the end of the first lap you don't really count it as it's from a standing start. Usually from lap 2 onwards, the fastest laps are the proper pace that you get as the cars start to warm up the tyres and get a little bit more into a groove. So Murphy's lead now is almost 7 seconds. In fact, it is 7 seconds now. Will Rossetti is in a bit of no man's land in second place here, but it's this fight for third downwards, Chris, where he's starting to get a little bit tasty, particularly with Blair McConaughey starting to hold up Matt Shepherd, and then the recovering David Rowe, who hates it every single time, always gets into a really strong position, and then something just seems to happen. Even the first couple of laps typically in the race, something towards the end that seems to knock him back down and force him to fight his way back through. So you must be thinking, come on, give me a break for goodness sake. He just wants one simple race victory where nothing happens. He wants a boring race win rather than so many sort of having to fight his way back through. But then again, Chrissy, knowing him like you do, he might well enjoy that.
I think he enjoys the racing, whatever, you know. I'm sure he would like to get that win, but actually I think secretly he wouldn't want to get a boring win. I think he'd say Murphy's just being boring out front. I think it's worth saying that quite often he's innocent sometimes of these things. It's not always his fault.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, I agree.
And so, just getting a bit of luck running his way. Like that time, it was very much Christian, I think, being over-ambitious up the inside, making it 3 wide when it was only the first lap and really no need to do that. So I think I would say, overall, you see Gallagher actually make his place over David Rowe there. So Gallagher sort of stating his cause for again, we've seen him some really consistent racing in and it's just showing. So can David Rowe now work with Gallagher to pull these two back in? Certainly he wants to be making progress now because we're 8 minutes to go. There's still time for him to get on the podium, but it will start getting a bit more desperate as if next lap down it's going to we're going to be down to sort of 6 minutes, and then it all starts feeling a little bit more last minute.
It's quite feeling last minute right now, actually, because look at these 4 going at it for the final podium place. We see, Gallagher, they've got together again. Now, that looked like Matt Shepherd possibly lost it on his own, and he's now been exited stage right off the road. But this is all most everyone back up. And look at Steve McMaster. He's now got himself back up into the mix. He's up to 4th now on the back of Blair McConaughey. He's almost like the Red Sea's passed and said everyone kind of went after you, Steve, because he's gone straight through. Christian Zarusa's back into the mix now. He's side by side with Richard Gallagher, with Mark Rodman in there too as well watching. And Mark Rodman's towards the back of the field, having one of his best showings in his very short esports racing career, and sideways with a bit of contact there for Steve McMaster. He gathers it up once again and back into the mix. Now we see David Rowe on the tail of Blair McConaughey. Everyone wants to be, well, looks of things, to 5th position. And poor Blair McConaughey he's still in third position. There's too many white cars in the field to try and figure out who's who. But we've now got 5 cars battling for that 5th position spot, including the charging Jaroslav Cherny, who's taking 1, 2, maybe 3 on the run towards the club chicane. If he gets 3 positions, this could be one of the best comeback drives of the season. Oh, and I might have spoken too soon as they're 3 abreast towards the club chicane. It's Gallagher on the inside, McMaster in the middle, Cherny on the outside, and McMaster beats the pair of them. Cherny squeezes through and says, "Excuse me, Richard, I think I'll have that place back if you don't mind." Into 7th. Everyone concertinating together. Now they're fighting behind between, looks like, I think that's Mark Robin and Richard Gallagher. You don't know where to look in this pack, Chris. It's brilliant racing, but there's so much action, I think we can barely keep up.
Yeah, it's going to be hard calling this all the time, and seems like every time they get together at the moment, they feel like having a little, a little cuddle, don't they? Which isn't working out very well. But nevertheless, we have seen, again, Rowe's back into that podium. Remember a lap ago, I was saying he was looking in 5th or 6th, looking like he wanted to get to the podium. Well, there he is. So just one couple of incidents later. Again, Murphy and Will Rossetti have just disappeared up the road. They've got 7 seconds and 5 seconds respectively. That's looking pretty comfortable. They just have to bring this home with only 6 minutes to go.
Very, very true. I was just calculating. Will Rossetti's best finish so far has only been a 7th place in the second race at Alton Park. So if he can make this one work, he'll be 5 places better and get himself a podium. And he has been a race winner in the real life racing in road sport before, so he'll certainly want to try and add to that. We're going to go 3 abreast again, boys, up into Church Corner, and McMaster's is he's got the most guts in that mix. As you see, McConaughey, I think, inadvertently elbowed Zaruto out wide. He keeps his foot across the grass, and Cerny just comes back through and says, "Thank you very much, another place made up." Looks like Zaruto might lose 3 more spots, as they're going to go 4 abreast down towards Club Chicane. Here goes Cherny again to make up another place. Thank you very much, Blair. Up into 6th position, 5th position he goes now. So from after his first lap incident with Christian Zarusa that put him, or Steve McMaster that put him down towards the bottom end of the field, Cherny back up to 5th position with 5.5 minutes to go, Chris. I doubt he's finished just yet. He's still got next up Steve McMaster to try and pass, and hopefully he'll get past him without making any contact this time. Sorry, Jaroslav, but and then if he can do that, he might even possibly get in with a shout with the podium and that's if he can catch up to David Rowe, who's not too far up the road himself.
Yeah, on that first corner incident, we saw Cherny, we saw Murphy go up the inside of Cherny, which put him wide and out of, he got a slight oversteer moment, as we just see. It looks like Rodman getting sideways out there, getting positioned out. And he was off, he had a rear end moment, and as he was just trying to recover back onto the racing line, it just was McMaster was coming around the bend, and then all heck broke loose after that, didn't it? But Rodman's lost a lot of places now from that spin. So Cherny has got every opportunity he's caught up already a half a second on McMaster. So yeah, it does look like he's got the speed to be able to catch up with his headlights blazing there as he's heading into Church Corner.
Christian Zaruto, watching an 8th and 9th position, must be thinking, how did they go from fastest in the pre-qualifying to 9th place in the race after starting towards the front of the field? But it's just how Caterham racing is in the esports world and how crazy it has been in this race.
I think he can.
Minutes to go then.
I think he can only blame himself, Scott, as well. It was that move on lap 1 that wasn't necessary. So I think he could be licking his wounds, but they're self-inflicted.
Yeah, no, actually, to be fair, I can't disagree with that, to be honest. But he has got some work to do, possibly in the second race, to get up from towards the bottom of the top 10. So we've now got just under 4 minutes to go in this very hectic first race at Thruxton in the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship. Meanwhile, back at the front, this guy, we haven't really talked about him too much, apart from just seeing him pop up with the fastest lap or so. James Murphy, in one of his more, uneventful races at the front, is certainly getting a chance to not be too over-enthusiastic like he normally is at the front. He's able to run away with the lead at the moment by almost 8 seconds, whereas Will Rossetti has got good pace over everyone else, but doesn't quite have the ultimate pace to keep up with James at this point in time. Likewise with David Rowe, he is sort of trying to pull away from Steve McMaster. Steve is starting to go with him a little bit and close that gap in a little bit and keep it static at around a second. Doesn't have the ultimate pace and nail the time either, because there's only 3.25 minutes now to go, to be able to get himself up into any higher than 3rd position right now, but could still reward himself with a podium. This is the guy we need to watch, though, Jaroslav Cherny. Points leader coming into tonight's racing, 137 to Christian Zaruta's 127. So he'll certainly increase his gap over David Rowe in that respect. And I think, ironically, he might even still end this first race as the championship leader, calculating, because he's in 5th position. That would give him, on my loose calculations, 30 points from this one, whereas we'd have James Murphy, who is currently sitting 10th. He would get the maximum 35, which means he would jump up a few spots. David Rowe would only pick up 1:32, which means that Christian Zaruto is a bit further back. Speaking of which, he's now being assaulted from either side now. This time by both Emil Jaselink and Richard Gallagher. He fends them both off into the club chicane. Gallagher right on his tail as they flick right, left and right again over the curbs and onto the pit straight to end another lap. Just over 2 minutes to go in this first race of the evening. I can't believe we've still got one more to go. If it's going to be this exciting, I'll be out of breath by the end of it.
Yeah, I think we're going to have both lost our voices. I think 7th place might be, unless an incident happens up front, I think that might be the best that Christian can hope for. So if I was him, I would try and solidify this now, especially as we're seeing Jaselink sort of fighting there with Gallagher. So that might give him a chance to sort of scamper away a little bit, although Gallagher's carrying a lot of speed through that early part of the complex. Normally that means you cost yourself speed coming out onto this back straight though. So I think Christian probably could be comfortable there as long as he doesn't make any mistakes or try too hard.
I did sort of cringe a little bit, wince a little bit at Richard Gallagher making move up the inside because I thought he was going to make contact, but thankfully he didn't, and he was able to hold on to that position. He's now more bothered with battling out with Emil Jaselink, one of our two Belgian drivers in the field. The other one, in fact, is right behind him in Tim Van He. He was one of the guys that made a pretty lightning start originally at the beginning of the race off the line. He started around sort of the 5th or 6th row of the grid, but managed to pick up a few spots before all hell broke loose in the midfield after the first few cars got together, particularly Cherney and McMaster. So we're up towards the last minute of the race now. The lead gap has gone out incredibly by a few more seconds, up to 9.4. So either James Murphy has really put his foot down, or simply Will Rossetti's possibly just backed off a little bit and just trying to bring the car home with a comfortable gap in second place. This is key though, because Steve McMaster has passed David Rowe whilst we were looking at the battle between Zaruto, Jaselink and Gallagher. So it looks like David Rowe's off the podium. Now the question's got to be, with the pace that Cherney's running, is he possibly going to have enough pace and potentially even in that consequence enough time to close into possibly snatch another position, or do we think maybe that Cherney might have risen as high as he can do in this first race, and 5th is going to be his best reward out of all of that?
Well, I think McMaster was too far behind for that to have been just a standard catch and pass. I know their paces are not that too that dissimilar, so I imagine that was a mistake by David Rowe, and if that was the case, then I imagine he's going to be working hard to not make that mistake again, because he's just now moved himself off the podium, like you say. And for McMaster, what a great return. That pressure again, just of consistency, is hopefully going to pay off for him with a podium here.
Possibly. Clock has got to 0, so that we're now on the last lap of the race as James Murphy heads his way out of Church Corner, up the hill towards Club Chicane. Still more position changes in the midfield. We're seeing Richard Gallagher and Emil Jaselink still battling over 8th place as the battle of a set for third, fourth and 5th goes through Church Corner, but up towards the checkered flag will come James Murphy, and quite frankly he's not been bothered since the lead. He managed to take advantage of everyone else losing their cool, kept his, and he will now go towards the checkered flag to take his second win of the season, the only other driver that's won a race this season, and he weaves with delight, and rightfully so, as James Murphy clinches fairly easily at that point the first win of the evening. Will Rossetti's got to be delighted, and so he is with his best result. A podium for Will Rossetti with second, and Steve McMaster, welcome back after your holiday, buddy, 3rd place to get himself on the podium in that first race. David Rowe again will be thinking what could have been, but I'm sure he will have still enjoyed the race that he had. And Christian Zaruto to make a point, fastest lap of the race on the last lap as he finishes 7th, 1:31.971. So there was a 1:31 in there somewhere, and someone managed to find it with a quick one towards the end. So Jaroslav Cherney does pick up 5th, and I think that will still give him the championship lead going into the second race in a few moments' time. Because I think looking at it, Christian Zaruto did finish 7th, Cherney was 5th, and then Rowe was 4th. So I think in terms of outscoring people, Cherney managed to only lose 1 point to Rowe, and he managed to gain a few more on Zaruto. So I think his points to this possibly increased. In fact, David Rowe might even be maybe in front of him, maybe, and I'm not sure. But we'll maybe calculate it afterwards, after the race. Either way, here's the final result of what was a bizarre and crazy but very entertaining first race here at Thruxton. So James Murphy takes the victory by 8.5 seconds. He did obviously back off towards the line, but if you're going at full pace, it could have easily been double figures. Will Rossetti, incredible stuff. He came from towards the rear of the field into a podium position through all the carnage of the first lap. Steve McMaster drove well to pick up 3rd. David Rowe, 4th despite everything that happened, so good fight back from him. Jaroslav Cherney also fighting back through the pack from towards the rear to a top 5 finish. Blair McConaughey, some strong work to make his way through, was at 3rd at one point, managed to get up to 6th in the end. Christian Zaruto, well, at one point could have possibly looked in sharp for the victory, but 7th of the fastest lap will do for him. Emil Jaselink is 8th, he beats Richard Gallagher to the line, and Tim Van He, our other Belgian, rounds out the top 10. Andrew Parker was 11th, from Andy Steele in 12th, Steve Arnell in 13th, And then it's 14th place for Paul Thurnehuff, who couldn't really make that much progress towards the back of the field. Matt Shepherd, who again was running towards the front, but he had an incident in the middle of the race. Then it's Paul Hawker, Mark Robin, who was running really strongly towards the middle half of that race before he had a bit of a mistake and had a spin. And as for Tom McEwing, just kind of kept his nose clean throughout and started towards the back of the field and finished last, but still did at least make the end. And incredibly, after all that, Chris, I think we're thankful damage is off, because despite all the incidents, 18 cars started, and thankfully all 18 cars still finished, and thank goodness for that.
Yes, there we do that for that very reason. It's a shame. Lots of things can happen in an online race, including these weird latencies. We're seeing the pings that are going off the scale, but we got away with that race actually, and all that havoc was all of their own making. So I can't blame the server for that for them. But nevertheless, yeah, Tom McEwing, he may have finished last, but probably at one point he was looking like he could have won it with everything else going on around him. But no, some again dominant race there from James Murphy. Never looked in doubt after those early incidents. Will Rossetti making the absolute best of of that, and McMaster showing again that consistency that really takes him there, and David Rowe again falling off of the podium. But it's looking like an interesting midfield now, isn't it, with Rowe, Cherney, McConaughey and Zaruto all there, and Gallagher, what a strong showing early in that race as well, so hopefully he can do more of the same in this next one.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I did spot something in the little Discord server where Jaroslav just said, sorry, I'll have to watch it back at how he became a ping pong ball on fire. That's his words from that incident in the first few corners when he made contact with Steve McMaster. And he will hopefully try and reconcile himself a bit better in this second race from 5th on the grid. So everyone now in their positions as we get set for race number 2. It's quick case of reset, back on the grid, and lights out round 2, or seconds out round 2 to use a boxing term. And the car's now in the mix. So just as a reminder, the grid is set by the result of race number 1, so that means that James Murphy does indeed start on pole position, and it is Will Rossetti who will be thanking his lucky stars to be starting this high up in second place. If he can get a good start, he might even beat James Murphy in the first few corners and get into the lead, because he has got good strong pace, but Murphy might be a little bit quicker, particularly if he's got the aid of a tow getting behind Rossetti if he gets in front. Steve McMaster a little bit higher up in 3rd. David Rowe might be hoping that this time if he starts a bit further back, he might be able to survive the opening couple of laps without getting caught up with somebody's incident, but let's wait and see. 5th for Jaroslav Cherney, and of course 6th in there for Blair McConaughey as well. Christian Zaruto also starting back in 7th. Has got a little bit of work to do, and a couple of other cars starting a bit further back, which also had some good races in the midfield as well. Quickly looking at this one then, based on where they finished, do we think the likes of possibly Rowe and Zaruta and possibly Cherney as well have got some unfinished business here?
Yeah, they've got the pace. They've just got to manoeuvre themselves through these first few laps. We'll see whether the server plays ball, see whether they each play ball with each other. But yeah, they really just got to dial it back that 1 or 2 notches to keep it all nice and consistent. And then we can see that fantastic racing that we're all looking forward to.
I think we can certainly hope that yes, the server does play ball, and no, we don't play ball with each other, particularly ping pong balls, particularly down towards Camel Cobb and Seagrave. Well, let's find out then. The lights are coming back up for race number 2 of the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship. It is Murphy, race 1 winner, on pole position. Rossetti alongside him on the front row, but a few more cars towards the back. Got some work to do from the rear. Red lights are on. Out they go, and it's a pretty clean start again. Good start from Zaruto from 7th or 8th on the grid as they make the charge towards Allard for the first time. Matt Shepherd towards the rear, of course, has got some work to do to work his way through. Now, Murphy has held the lead through Allard up towards the complex. Cherney already going to combat with David Rowe, who started pretty quickly and is up to 3rd place already. Cherney's down on the outside line battling with McMaster. Here we go again. These two were the ones that set off the chain of events into Campbell Cobb and Seagrave. This time though, a bit more space given. That's much more like it, boys. Well done. So up through Campbell Cobb and Seagrave for the first time. Everyone paused their way through, and I think, touch wood, I was about to say everyone's got through pretty cleanly. I saw McMartin getting sideways as I said that, but he's managed to hold on to it for the time being. He's now been swamped by all sides here. He's got Zaruto in front of him, McConaughey right behind him. He's got to his left Jaroslav Cherney, as into the lead goes Will Rossetti. So a bit of a mistake there for David Rowe, and already up towards Church on this first lap, Chris. It is 6th for the lead as they run down towards it. It's changed again actually, because there's a bit of a mix there, so I was getting a bit confused. So Murphy continues to lead, so he's shot off to the tone of 1.3 seconds, but for second place it is 6 of them all together. Hold your breath, this is going to be pretty tense down towards Club Chicane on the first lap, with 6 drivers all trying to be second place on the end of it,
and then everyone else trying to be the place behind as well. So
yep.
We've got 6 here. We got a little touch there. Christian Zaruta on Will Rossetti sideways, and McMaster gets caught up in that. Zaruta's off into the barrier as well. So again, we've got more issues around at Club. So 6 into 1, we can doubly confirmed just does not work. And we got another issue there. It looks like that was Blair McConaughey going spinning round. Meanwhile, Cherney makes its way through the middle of it all.
Yeah, I think it was Zaruto actually. He was trying to recover after he went off into the barriers and over the grass, and he managed to get back onto the circuit, but I think his eagerness was a bit too heavy on the right foot rejoining and managed to lose the back end of the car. So he slipped down towards the tail of the field. They're still going at it for what it looks to be second and third position now. David Rowe, the top three have managed to break out a little bit here. It's now Murphy from Rowe from Cherney. They're all back squabbling over fourth place now, with all Rossetti holding on to it. Emil Jaselic is up to fifth position after a cracking start, but Masters trying to recover in sixth. Tim Van He's up there in seventh, and Matt Shepherd, who was about 14th or 15th on the grid, up about 6 or 7 spots already, up into 8th, 9th position, and trying to make up more places, but he's being swamped by cars around him. Oh, very close between. That was Will Rossetti almost leaning on the inside of Emil Jaselic there for fourth position, but the Belgian's got the run he needs, and his fellow Belgian driver Tim Van he's going wheel to wheel with Steve McMaster. McMaster goes through. We're on board with Tim Van as you can see the Just Add Lightness, the sponsor for the Academy Championship, on the dashboard. Now it's going to be 2x2 hurrah on the run towards the club chicane. So we've now got to the right Steve McMaster, just in front to the right is Will Rossetti, and they're both going to get a run on Jaselic and Rossetti. McMaster decides, you know what, forget this, 3 abreast into club chicane, that'll do. They're all going to squeeze in together, and he's done it. He's got 1. Is he going to get 2? Or maybe Jaselic's going to try and elbow him out wide. If he can, there's more contact, and oh dear. Well, that's more contact as David Rowe sets the fastest lap of the race as he now leads the way. James Murphy's in the pit lane for some reason. Whether that was a jump start, whatever it might have been, we've seen that before, but James Murphy in the pit lane for one reason or another. I'm guessing some kind of a pit lane penalty for a jump start or something along those lines. But he's back out in third place, or thought he was anyway, but he's still in third position. A bit of a mistake, maybe.
I wonder whether James Murphy got a jump start penalty because he maybe had to come through the pits, and all that time he made out front, he's lost out on now. Certainly, because he's not sat in the pits, it doesn't look like he's been disqualified, so he either accidentally took to the pit lane after a back end stepped out on him, or he had to go and serve a drive-through for a jump start.
Yeah, we saw David Rowe do that before, didn't we, back at Alton Park, where he got a pretty good start and then had to come to the pit lane and effectively almost gave up he did give up the lead, if not one of the leading positions, and then we wondered why he was going down the pit lane so much, and that was the reason why he got a jump start of some kind. So now David Rowe, fingers crossed, he leads the way by 3 seconds with Jaroslav Cherney in second place, and we're coming up towards a third distance already in this race now. Third position is James Murphy after what we believe would have been a drive-through penalty for possibly a jump start, which means that Rossetti's now fourth. Tim Van He's up to fifth position, so we've lost down the order Emil Jaselic. Where's he got to? 12th position, so he looks like he lost out a little bit and had a mistake. Oh no, sorry, I remember that he made contact with McMaster. That's the reason why he's down the order. So McMaster down 18th now, so he's got some work now. And getting sideways also there is Steve Arnell. Back onto the road he goes, and he hasn't lost too many positions just yet. He's just very steadily back onto the road as Rowe sets the new fastest lap of the race again. Arnell back on the road in 7th place ahead of Paul Hawker, who's having a decent run so far in 8th place and now going wheel to wheel for what could now be 7th. And there we see Tom McEwing, and he started towards the back of the grid, so a pretty strong start getting through all the mayhem in the opening couple of laps, Chris, and despite starting and finishing at the back in race 1, a bit more confidence in race 2 so far for Tom.
Yeah, I said that in the last race he had the opportunity to, and at the moment he's made up probably the most spaces. He's got a Gallagher and Zaruto behind him. Can you believe that after the opening round when they were, right up front? But we've still got this pack of racing cars here deep in the field, and it seems like they all want to be on the same bit of tarmac, and they don't really care whether there's another car there at the moment, as we've got more issues there. I think is that James Murphy?
James Murphy? I think it is Murphy, isn't it? Because Murphy was going down the timing screen. I saw him about 8th position or so. So James Murphy, race 1 winner, has made a mistake, and he's tumbling down towards the back bottom of the field. He's down to 18th and last. So whatever happened there for him, that's not him. That's a car with a very similar paint scheme, being Paul Hawker. But James Murphy then, issues for him after his pit lane penalty, we presume, and of course then looks as though he's dropped down from what was third position, a mistake from him, and then more mistakes getting back onto the circuit, getting caught in the mid-pack, and down to the bottom of the field he goes.
Yeah, I think we saw him also having to take a cut penalty. It's why he was slow to recover, as well as Arnell. We saw Arnell have to cut across the chicane. That gave him a cut penalty, so it means you have to actually slow the car down, and we saw a couple of others. But here's Paul Hawker here up in 7th place with Steve Arnell also making some great progress up there. Blair McConaughey and Tim Vanhee. It'd be great to see Vanhee have a good result, seen as he's quite often fighting with Jeselic, but he's free of his buddy on track now and actually looking like he's closing in on Rossetti.
Want to tempt fate, as you say, he's only 1.6 seconds away at the moment from a potential, and that's the key word in that sentence, a potential podium. So if he keeps it clean and keeps in the mix, he might well start to latch into, because remember with these Caterhams in the Assetto Corsa sim that we use, the magic gap that you want to start getting a toe is underneath half a second. That's when the toe starts to take effect. If you're even just a fraction outside of that, the toe effectively is non-existent. So it's pretty much almost a bit of like a light switch. If you're inside the half a second, the toe kicks into life. If it's not there, you seem to kind of fall back a little bit. We're looking back further here with this scrap that's going on with, this is Mark Rodman, who's also had a bit of an up and down evening so far, but has shown some good promise in certain points of the race. Tom McEwing holding on to 10th position, Mark Rodman's up to 11th and Gallagher's 12th. Someone got sideways in the mix. Behind there, another car going sideways as they're wiggling around on the grass. That might have even been, I think, possibly Steve McMaster. So he's had quite a night so far, getting involved with other people's incidents. Through Church Corner they go. We've almost kind of ignored the fact that Church Corner is the fastest circuit on the racetrack, but we've had so much action going on, we've kind of forgotten about it almost in many cases, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, in real life and in the sim, it's a daunting corner. You've got to get it right, and you've really got to maximise it to optimise your lap timers. Again, we see some locked brakes coming into the club chicane, but it looks like everything is being sorted out, although we've got a car off on the inside there. So I think it's only fair to ask at this point, how is Dave Rowe going to lose this race? What's going to happen to him now? Are we going to have lightning suddenly appear in the sim?
Well, I know they've just implemented a weather mod that you can put in for Assetto Corsa, but I don't think it's quite that extreme that you can have lightning in there just yet. They haven't put it in by default. James Murphy, for what it's worth, has now just set the fastest lap of the race, even though he's at the back of the field. He's probably just playing at the back now, trying to set the fastest lap here. He's got some clear air. He's 5 seconds off the car in front of him. It's in 17th, which is Andy Steele, but he might possibly get close to him before the end of the race. Although that said, he's still 5 seconds back, and I know he's just jumped by another half a second now, as in that gap's come down. So he's getting there a little bit, but fastest lap of the race for him. But David Rowe, you're absolutely right. He's probably listening out for anything like, is anything going to happen with my PC? Anything happen with my sim and my wheel? Am I putting a wheel onto the grass? He's probably keeping his eyes darting around the screen, thinking, is anything going to come up in terms of penalty? Looking around his mirrors, thinking, is someone closing in? He'll be so sort of paranoid that something's going to happen now he's in the lead. But he's only got less than 6 minutes to go. But of course, as we've seen in these races, particularly towards the packing, anyone in the field, regardless of where they are, Chris, it only takes one small slip up from somebody and it can set off a chain reaction. So, and David just needs to keep it nice and calm, nice and cool, and try and maintain the gap as best as he can to Cherney, because he's managed to get it dipped under 3 seconds. He's a couple of tenths quicker on that lap, but if he only keeps it to him losing a couple of tenths each lap, if he can get it to the flag, that'll be job done. Yeah,
it's the kind of trying to get that balance. If you take your foot off the pace too much, then the car reacts in a different way then, and actually things get more difficult. So you've got to take those couple of tenths away to give yourself a nice safety margin, especially around those corners where we know you can get a cut penalty, or places where you risk getting that sort of penalty system. So take it away there, a couple of tenths slower, and he should be good to the end of this race.
So the gap is maintaining it at the moment 2.7 seconds. So Rowe's got a pace that isn't losing him too much time. He's losing, let's say, a couple of tenths per lap. But that's enough, that's fine, just nice and steady on those last couple of laps, and you can get it to the flag. Now these two are getting reacquainted, Matt Shepherd and Christian Zaruto. Matt Shepherd started towards the back of the field, climbed back up a few spots, and now he's stuck in the midfield here in 9th place.
He had a good qualifying session actually. He was probably qualified about 2 or 3 places higher than he would normally expect to. We previously saw him on the B grid, so it shows how much progress he's making. But during the race, he fell back in race 1 due to those incidents. But now it looks like he's really up there having a good old battle with Christian Zaruto. Out the back there, Paul Fernandez though has had a nightmare race. He's 4th in the championship coming into this race, but I just saw him have another incident spin or maybe a cut, and he's dropped now back down to 17th.
Yeah, we should look in front actually, because Paul Hawke, we talked about him having one of his best races so far. He's having a grand scrap here with Steve Arnell, trying to outbrake himself a little bit for P6. Can he get it anchored up? He can. He's all over the curbs, and back there goes Steve Arnell, and that's just going to invite both Christian Zarusa to play, as also might well be Matt Shepherd. It was all going so well until I talked
Commentator's
about
curse.
But he's still in the mix, though. He's still there, and if you can possibly follow Christian Zarusa's lead here, you might well stay in the mix. Although, now I've said that, look at Matt Shepherd trying to get past him. So we actually need to stop talking about Paul. He might go a bit quicker. Anyway, let's talk about Christian Zarusa, because he's going pretty quickly. He's now trying to look up the inside of Steve Arnell. In fact, Paul might be watching on thinking, right, Christian, show me how to do it. Oh, that's not how to do it quite well. Just bump against the back of of Steve Arnell's almost multicoloured machine. Out through Campbell Cobb and Seagrave, and now up towards Goodwood. We've now got 3.25 minutes to go, and this is the crunch time, really, isn't it, Chris? In terms of if you're going to make your move for a position in the last couple of laps here, given how fast-paced this circuit is, it's a case of you don't really want to leave it to the last lap if you can try and pull a gap here, particularly in a pack like this. Doing what Steve Arnell's doing here to try and break the toe of that magic half a second. If you can do that, it's all important.
He went wide there, though, so he's lost all that momentum. It's such a difficult corner, Goodwood, to get absolutely right. If you get a slightly understeer, if you carry a little bit too much speed in or have a slightly the wrong line in, it really costs you time. And that's what we saw with Arnell there. And so Arnell looking like he was going to have a really top result, and now he's going to be slipping to the midfield, especially if Shepherd gets him as well.
It's up to 6th now, and it's now a scrap between Hawker, Arnell and Shepherd just behind him now for that 7th place, and Hawker's just he was trying to hold on. I think it might have been the unfortunate death of his chances there, I'm afraid. And
yeah, we're seeing him dropping down the field. Yeah,
it's just unfortunate. I think a bit of overexcitement got a little bit the better of him going into the cup, breaking his upper club chicane. Braked a little too late, trying to beat the other two to the apex, and unfortunately it's got the better of him, and round he goes. So he's now going to rejoin him possibly about 12th or 13th position. In 13th, meanwhile, is James Murphy, who, for what it's worth, has managed to recover pretty well to catch up to the cars that were in front of him by several seconds. So he's lapping still incredibly quickly, and he's now he's trying to make a move here on that's Paul Hawker in front, who's trying to make a move on Richard Gallagher. So if he keeps on going, he might get as high as 11th if he can get past these two cars, but it will depend on how well he can work his way through. So looking at the rest of the order as they come out of Campbell Cobb and Seagrave, here's another good strong battle. Steve Arnell still scrapping away with Matt Shepherd. He's retaliating on Matt Shepherd here down the inside line. Behind him there's Steve McMaster trying to look up the inside of Andrew Parker. So they might go they're going to go 2 by 2 towards the Church corner. Now going side by side on the approach to Church is brave. Side by side into Church and through it is stupid, but they're going to go side by side anyway. And into the mix goes Steve Arnell, up another place to get back past Matt Shepherd. He's going to get back into the slipstream. And right in the mix there too, also in that magic half a second range, is Steve McMaster. He might get a double tower here. He's bringing Andrew Parker with him. They're going to go side by side on the braking zone. I think they'll be starting the last lap here because leader David Rowe has gone through already. Over the curb goes Shepherd, holds onto the position and maintains 7th. This is 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. The final top 4 spots. Not anymore, it's not, because I think also not only has Parker disappeared, also so has Steve Arnell as round he goes. So it's all kicking off at the chicane. But last lap then, as Shepherd now holds on with Steve McMaster now on his tail once more. And yeah, Parker's dropping back down the order again, unfortunately. Last lap it seems, 25 seconds to go. And as we keep watching this one, the lead gap we should mention has come down to 1.7 seconds. And Cherney's right there. But looking at the time that's left, I'm not going to say anything other than all Rowe needs to do is just bring it home. I don't want to say unless he does this, unless he does that. Just bring it home and let's see if David Rowe can finally get himself that first win.
Come on, surely he can do it now. There's not too much except for a cut going through the final chicane. There's surely not much that can deny him at this point. I think he has been managing that gap, but the problem is if you do manage the gap and you let the guy behind, come up behind you, it's going to put that pressure on. So here we go. Can he do it? Can he do it, Scott?
Approach for the club chicane. All he's going to do is turn right, left and right and not take too much curb. Here he goes. Right, left and then right again. And as he comes towards the checkered flag, we can say, finally, at last, without too many dramas, David Rowe at last wins a race in the Academy Championship, and not a moment too soon. Great drive. Second place for Jaroslav Cherney closed in. And Will Rossetti, what a night for him. 2 podiums. Great job for him. 4th for Tim Van. He'll be pleased with that as well. Lots of people weaving in delight. 5th for Blair McConaughey. A strong evening's work after he qualified pretty poorly. 6th position for Christian Zaruto. He would have hoped for better, but down to P6. 7th for Steve McMaster. 8th for Matt Shepherd. 9th for Richard Gallagher. And not too bad for James Murphy. P10 after what was happening before. from what was last and about 5 or 6 seconds back from the last car and charged back up to 10th. Impressive stuff. No wonder they call him Superman. 11th place. Oh, that was side by side across the line for what was, I think it was only 16th place, but that was still pretty intense. That was Paul Fernandez and Andrew Parker going side by side there as to went across the line. Paul Hawker, I think, will just make his way towards the checkered flag, which he will. And Andy still comes across the line, and that is the second race done. And breathe for a second, because that was pretty intense for that second race once more. But here's the result. I'm sure very happy, and I think more than anything relieved, David Rowe finally takes his first win of the season after so many times of trying over the season, both in 420 yards this season and in the academy. Finally gets that win. Second place for Jaroslav Cherny, closed him in, but we suspect that Dave was just managing the gap there towards the end. But still solid points for him to, I'm sure, maintain his championship lead, although David Rowe would have closed that gap in a bit more. Third position and a second podium of the evening, Will Rossetti. That will certainly give his points haul a big boost, considering that he came into the evening 9th place. That will certainly see him jump several spots up, I'm sure, into the verges of the top 5, if not inside it, I would imagine. 5th for Blair McConaughey, 6th for Christian Zaruta. Again, had the potential, could have even possibly in contention to win the race, but just mistakes and issues just kept on pushing him down the order. So not the evening he would have wished for. 7th for Steve McMaster, 8th for Matt Shepherd, 9th for Richard Gallagher, and Superman himself, James Murphy, despite the spin, gets back up to 10th, and not a bad drive in the process. He got the fastest lap as well, I think, also in the 131s. 11th for Tom McEwing, really impressive from the back of the grid, found a bit more confidence in that second race. Emma Jaselink had mistakes back in 12th, then Mark Rodman 13th, Steve Arnell 14th again, he'll be disappointed, was as high as 6th at one point. Then Paul Fernandez, not a good night for him, coming in 4th in the standings. He will, I hate to say, he will plummet down the table now after that, and not an unsatisfactory night for him. And Andrew Parker, Paul Hawker and Andy Steele, I think when you lie down after that, Chris, that was two very intense races for very different reasons, but so much action going on. Some of it, I think, we admit that some of the action, there was maybe at times possibly a bit too much contact, but at the same time, the racing that we did get and the action that we got was certainly, I'm sure, for those watching, I hope, entertaining, to say number least, above all else.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see less contact for sure, and we'll be making sure that we chat about that after the race, because it's better to see a fair race, isn't it? So take it back a notch or two just to ensure the racing comes to the fore. However, there were some great battles in there, and the reason that we had some contact was because they were trying to go 6 wide, which is unbelievable. Really good result there for Dave Rowe coming out on top in that race too, after a well-controlled sort of recovery drive back through race 1 as well. So yeah, really, really good to see him sort of achieve that. I wonder whether we can actually just to correct, Christian Zaruto actually stole fastest lap on the last lap, so kudos to him for doing that. But let's see if we can get Dave Rowe in. I think it's only fair to talk to our most recent and newest winner, David Rowe. Hello, David. You got us in the commentary box.
Evening, Chris. Yeah, I have.
Yes, finally. We were wondering whether lightning was going to strike or some, a deer was going to run out in front of your car or something, but nothing happened, and you managed to bring it home.
Yeah, I've got to say it was, I was doing the chicane probably about 2 or 3 tenths slower, just to make sure I didn't get a cut. I had your voice in my head, Cheesy. I couldn't get it out of it.
Yeah, and no jump starts as well, so we're starting to get there. Maybe we can see more of the same. But overall, it was a kind of frantic race, shall we say? But actually, there were a number of incidents throughout those 2 races.
Yeah, there were. I mean, basically, Christian is making a mark for himself here in the online fraternity. He got to keep a wide berth for Christian. So as soon as he was out of the way in race 2, it was a lot easier.
Yeah, again, Christian not qualifying particularly well tonight, which means that he has to come out, and I guess you avoid him like the back end of a donkey. But nevertheless, I think we'll take the win for now, and moving into the next sort of 420R. We've got a bit of a gap, but I'm sure you'll be back and ready to go with those.
Lovely. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Cheers, mate.
And good luck at Thruxton at the weekend as well.
Just one thing I was going to mention on that, David, given that all the bits and pieces that we're going on tonight, are you going to be saying to your drivers, do as I say, don't do as I do, given what's happened tonight?
Yes, that would be a nice outcome. I mean, I think I don't give any advice. I think that's the best thing to do. let them crack on with it.
Yeah, we're generally better than you, Dave. So it's all good.
That's 100% true. Yeah.
I think it'd be a case of quite simply, if you bend it, you're paying for it. So give them this weekend. So, and I'll be there on comms to oversee it. So fingers crossed they all get home safely as much as well. But yeah, I think both of us have to agree that was a long time coming after so many times you've had bad luck in the first couple of laps of mini race. I think that was just more than else. It must be relief that you finally got a victory where just about nothing went wrong.
It was relief, yeah. Obviously, luck played a big part of it, and Cherney, to be fair, was totally reeling me in, and I was just trying to keep it safe, really. So I was lapping quite slow, but it was enough. But it was good.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff. We'll see you at the weekend.
Cheers, guys.
Oof, right, okay. I'm quite interested I'm not sure whether Matt Shepherd's about. We haven't had him in the commentary box yet, but he did figure quite nicely in that race. So I don't know if Matt, have you got us in the commentary box? Ooh, I could hear a noise. I didn't hear a word.
Hello?
Yeah, got you now,
There he
Matt. That was an intense race. You found yourself sort of at the front, back, and in the middle throughout that whole sort of affair.
Yeah, the first race was crazy because everyone had some incidents. I then managed to drive around, but then got a cut penalty to being off the tracks, had to slow down. Then the chicane, the same happened again. And then, I had a great flight with Blair, I think it was, who, I'm not quite sure what happened, but we tagged each other and then I got spun around.
So overall, a kind of, I guess some good racing, but incidents marring that. But you had an all right result in both. I can't remember your race in the first one, but certainly in the second one, you seemed to finish okay.
Yes, second one, again, good fights all the way through the field and came 7th or 8th or something. It's just great to be joining the fight at the front for a change.
Yeah, we mentioned on the commentary that actually, so you started off in the B grid, then you had a fix of your sim rig, and now you're performing, and you must be pleased with the progress up the field.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it helps if you have all of your steering instead of half your steering. It makes Apexes a hell of a lot easier.
It certainly does. Well done, and we look forward to more of the same, and we'll see you in just under a month in our next round.
Cheers, mate.
And good luck at the weekend as well.
Yeah, cheers, thanks. Yeah, I mean, this sim racing has been great practice for the chaos we're going to have at the weekend.
I look forward to it. I'll see you there.
Yeah, cool, see you there.
Whew, there you go, and breathe.
Good stuff. We can take a bit of a break now, of course. Some amazing some amazing action, shall we say, whichever way you look at it. Lots of eventful stuff to talk about, lots of talking points I'm sure that will be discussed not only long into the night but over the next few weeks for the next few rounds. We should obviously go forwards, just clarify where we head to next. Of course, we've got real life Caterham action coming up, but just for those who want to keep track, there is a bit of a break because, like in real life, there is a few weeks gap between this weekend's action at Thruxton and the next in real life. Of course, we follow the real life calendar and race as early as a couple of weeks beforehand, with the 420 hours 1 week, and then the week of the meeting we have the academy, as we are doing this occasion. So the next online action you will see for caterhamracer.com is going to be back with the 420 hours, 15th of September, once again at 8:30. And the next venue is Brands Hatch Indy, which is always quite an eventful place to go. The Kent's Speed Bowl, as I like to call it. The Indy circuit, very quick, 1.2 miles, short, sharp, very fast, very tricky, and some very daunting corners, particularly that run into Paddock Hill Bend. 15th of September is when the 420 hours will be out on track, and then these cars, the academy, will be out on the week of their meeting. That will be on Tuesday, 22nd of September, 8:30. I guess closing thoughts, thinking about tonight's racing. Obviously, it was wins in the DPR camp, one for James Murphy, and some contrasting fortunes for both, I suppose. Both had a win, both had their own incidents. Some sort of put them down the order deeper than others. But I think in any case, I think that the DPR camp, to all intents and purposes, at least going this weekend, that will certainly have perked up their spirits a bit going to Thruxton in real life this weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's what's going to take their focus from now on. Obviously, they're looking to go into the real world racing, and let's hope that we have some really good results for them over that period for all the drivers that are on our servers, wherever they may be heading. I know that the graduates have also got a Snetterton race coming up very shortly as well. But yeah, it was really hard to sort of keep up with the action today, wasn't it? I think every driver has taken every position at some point throughout the two races. Like I say, not always the best there, but still a really nice, some nice racing in between, and that's what we're going to take away from that. And equally, the server gods were playing in our favour, so even though they had some issues in qualifying, it didn't affect those two races, and thank goodness for that, because the drivers were doing it all themselves.
Absolutely. I guess before we do sign off very quickly, we should say well done to everyone racing, but also, just in case, if you were looking to possibly watch some of these guys racing in real life this weekend, you can do so. So I do believe that I don't want to guarantee it, but I believe if you go to the Thruxton website, thruxtonracing.co.uk, I do believe that you can pick up tickets. I think I'm just checking on the website now just to make sure in terms of tickets.
You might have to ring the circuit, but I think even if you have to do that, it's worthwhile finding out what your options are. I mean, the racing is always brilliant around Thruxton. Unbelievable stuff. If tonight, it gives you a bit of a taste for how close it can be, and in real life, they just about managed to keep it without incident.
If you think back to 2 years ago when they went there, it was brilliant stuff in the race. I think it was one of their first proper visits to Thruxton, at least the first time in a while. So yeah, just to confirm, if you want to potentially come and watch these guys, some of these guys race for real this weekend in Caterham, you can do it by heading to thruxtonracing.co.uk. The BRSTC event is there. Now, tickets are available, but the process, you have to purchase them online, and they'll be available to collect at the venue from the ticket hut in the main car park. So you have to purchase them online. There won't be any sold on the gate, so you have to do that, although you can email info@bark.net if you're unable to purchase any tickets online. Children 15 and under go free. The grandstand seats are going to be closed, unfortunately, and also paddock access will be closed to spectators. It is only for competitors and officials, of course, given the fact that we are in very crazy times. We have to have restrictions in place to make sure that everyone's as safe as possible. But we should say not only well done to everyone else racing, but also wherever anyone who's racing tonight is competing, whether it is Snetterton or Thruxton this weekend. Best of luck to all our catering competitors this weekend. Academy, Road Sport, 270, 310s, and the 7 UK Championship. It's only their second collective race meeting altogether. What a place to do it. A stark contrast from Cadwell Park, the twists and turns, to ultimately the fastest circuit in the country. So lots of action guaranteed. We're going to be there, at least. I think you should be there with DPR, I think, at least on the Saturday, I believe. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to try and head over for this one. That'd be good fun.
Yeah, and I'll be using my vocal tones. They'll be nicely warmed up now for the action. I'll be on the microphone for both days. So if you do head down, and if you do happen to listen out for my voice, then I probably won't see you because I'll be probably tucked up in the sort of. It's a hut of some kind. The commentary box, either main commentary box building overlooking the start-finish straight, or down at the complex. Either way, but anyone who does come down and watch, I'm sure that the catering guys would appreciate it. If you do, of course, do make sure you maintain social distancing and keep up with all the measures, because of course it is, as we say, strange times. Everyone's got to play their part to make sure we're as safe as possible. And yes, all that's left to say is enjoy the weekend. If you are going to come to Thruxton, enjoy the racing. Best of luck to all our competitors. And I guess we can just finish off by saying a big thank you to our main sponsor as well, because of course the caterhamracer.com Academy Championship is sponsored by Just Add Lightness, high performance LED lights for the Caterham 7. I'm going to close my mouth now, apart from saying from myself, Scott Woodwiss, and Chris Hutchinson, have a great rest of the evening, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy Thruxton if you're going there as well. We will see you for more action very soon when we get the Academy guys and the 420R guys back on track at I'm losing my voice into this one because there's been so much action at Brands Hatch in a few weeks' time. But until then, I'm going to go and rest my voice. I'm sure Chris is going to get a drink somewhere. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we will see you next time for more. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.